Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. It's time once again to talk about the wonderfully whimsical tabletop skirmish game Moonstone. The good folk over at Goblin King Games have recently announced a special Goblin King's Coffers event, which I will be talking about more at the end of the video. I am quite excited about the event, and that is certainly going to cause me to dip into my own coffers and add some more miniatures to my collection. That being the case, I really do need to start painting more of the stuff I already have, and so today we are going to take a look at the Goblin Mortician. I am going to unbox him, run through his rules, then get him assembled and painted. Although please note, this is not a painting tutorial video. As many of you probably know, I have quite a few different troops for Moonstone, but my main focus has always been the goblins. I have divided my wee gobbos into two main teams, the pirates and the city folk, and for the longest time I have needed to add a mortician to my city folk roster. A, because it's a gorgeous miniature, and B, he works really well with a lot of my strategies. Well, for my birthday this year, a good friend gifted me the mortician, and I have just been too busy to get him painted, so today I am rectifying that. The mortician is part of the Rule the Roost troop box, but as with all Moonstone miniatures, he is also available as a single character blister, which is what I have here. The blister includes the double-sided character card, a small baggie containing our beautiful resin miniature, and a single 30mm slotter base with a lipped edge. The miniature is a single cast piece, no assembly required other than gluing it into the base. But the mortician does come with a little friend, a crow in a fancy hat. That bird gave me pause for thought because it isn't designed to attach to the mortician, and I didn't just want it sitting on the ground beside him. Luckily, I have an extensive bits box, so I was able to come up with something I am really happy with. More on that later on. The miniature is glorious. One of the funny things about Moonstone is I think most of the miniatures are lovely, and often I find that my current favourite is whatever I am building or painting at the time. So naturally, the Mortician is my favourite miniature. He has so much character, with his droopy hat, the candle lantern for a better view of his grisly work, and his hooked witch-like nose. It was a good clean sculpt. I scrubbed it up with a brush and some washing up liquid to make sure it was clean and free of resin flakes, and I did notice there was a very minor seam on the shoulders that I scraped off with a knife. Then I glued the miniature on the base. As these are resin miniatures, you can't use plastic cement, so I used a really strong superglue, and I positioned the miniature as far to one side of the base as possible, leaving space for a scenic element. With that done, I was ready to start painting, but before I show you what I came up with, let's take a look at the Mortician's rules. He is obviously part of the Dominion faction, and he has the keywords Goblin and Wizard. His stats are Melee 2 with a 1-inch range, Arcane 4 and Evade -1. He has 7 health and generates 2 energy per turn as standard. Being old and curmudgeonly, he is slow, limiting his jog actions to just 2 inches, and that means he isn't going to be racing to gather up moonstones for you. But he has a wealth of other skills. Importantly, he likes to be surrounded by death, and his Spirit Link ability lets him generate 1 additional energy for each friendly slain character during the replenish step. I think the Mortician is an amazing support character. He has the healing ability, which costs 2 energy and can target a model within 8 inches. If played with a blue card, this ability lets the target recover wounds equal to the value of the card. On a catastrophe, the Mortician suffers 2 wounds. Rigor Mortis is incredibly good, but risky. It targets a model within 6 inches and requires 3 energy, which means the Mortician will need to gain additional energy over and above what he normally generates. Although, thanks to his Spirit Link, that's not a problem if you have suffered a few casualties during the game. If you play Rigor Mortis with any card with a value of 2, the target must discard all of its energy and suffers 1 wound. But on a catastrophe, the Mortician suffers 4 wounds, which is going to make it harder for him to generate energy and puts him incredibly close to death. His final ability is Reanimate, which lets him bring a slain model back into play with half health and no energy, if played with a card of value 2. As with Rigor Mortis, it costs 3 energy, but you are only ever going to need to use Reanimate if at least one of your characters has been slain, and each slain character is going to generate bonus energy. In this way, the Mortician's work feeds into itself, granting him the necessary energy when he needs it in a grim circle of unlife. The biggest risk is Catastrophe, which will inflict 4 wounds on the Mortician. Overall, the Mortician is very powerful and can really keep your team ticking through healing and reanimating, but he does have 4 distinct weaknesses. The first is he is slow, which means you have to think carefully about his placement to make best use of his skills. The second is his low energy generation. It is offset by his Spirit Link ability, and often when you need to reanimate someone you are going to have the energy available to do so, but nevertheless you may find the Mortician ends up doing just one big thing per activation, and if an ability like Rigor Mortis fails to trigger, he could end up exposed and vulnerable with no energy left. The third issue is he doesn't have a lot of health, and if he suffers any kind of catastrophe, he is going to take a serious hit. That hit is likely to nerf his energy generation, making it even harder to pull off his abilities, and perhaps even preventing him from healing himself. Finally, he isn't up to much in a fight. Fortunately, his signature move can help here. It's an upgrade of low guard called Play Dead. It doesn't inflict any damage, but after the end step, the Mortician cannot be targeted with actions until he next performs an action of his own, or until the end of the turn, whichever comes first. That's a useful move for getting out of a tough spot. But I promised earlier in the video that I would show the Mortician fully painted, so let's do that now. Here he is. I went for a suitably drab colour scheme. It's all browns and greys, with the exception of his walking stick, which I painted to look like bone. And as you can see, I rummaged through some bits and pieces of scenery from an Archon Studio Dungeons and Lasers bundle I had, and found this lovely Weeping Willow, which frames the Mortician nicely, fits the somber theme, and serves as an excellent perch for our birdie buddy. I really like the final look of the piece, and I think the composition works well. At this point I just need to varnish the miniature and add some static grass to the base, and this is then a done job. Now, before I sign off, I just want to talk a bit about Goblin King Games' Goblin King's Coffers event. It kicks off at 3 PM GMT on Monday the 25th of November and runs through to 11 AM GMT on Friday the 29th of November. During that time you will be able to buy limited quantities of limited edition pieces, normally only available during crowdfunding campaigns or special events. So if you want the King on his throne, or an angry jackalope, or Eric the Exalted on his beetle mount, now is your chance. Also as part of this event will be some brand new special limited edition Christmas Psychopomps. It's the 2 pomps that you get tokens for in the new Moonstone starter set, but now they have been given a festive makeover. There are a few things I definitely want to pick up if I can. Those new Psychopomps for a start, but I also want the old Grimblesnacht festive kit, which is an upgrade for the Goblin airship. And yes, that means I will need to buy another airship too. Finally, I want to pick up the Treasures and Tyrants of Taubor and Doomsday Report books. I think they will be nice additions to my bookshelf. I will put a link in the video description to the official information regarding the King's Coffers events, so you can see exactly which miniatures are on offer, but that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.